refusing the plan proposed by House Speaker John Boehner. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Good to be with you.
As I understand it, the key reason you voted against the Boehner plan is that you couldn't support any proposal that doesn't have a balanced budget amendment attached to it. Because for you, is it a matter of principle?
Well, it's not only that. I can't support any plan that doesn't eventually balance. And I mean, we're talking about balancing the budget over 7 to 8 years. They're talking about adding $7 to $8 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. And I don't think the country can withstand that. I think that's an unsustainable level of debt.
Well, at this moment, it doesn't look like the Democratic leadership will be open to including a balanced budget amendment. So does this mean you won't budge either? And that for you, principles will always trump any compromise deal that dismisses them?
Well, you know, the interesting thing is I'm new up here, but I'm kind of having trouble understanding what the Democrats are doing. Right now, I think Harry Reid is filibustering himself. We agreed last night to have a vote on the Harry Reid plan, and he said he doesn't want to vote on his own plan. Then he has a press conference saying the Republicans are obstructing and filibustering. It sounds to me like a lot of posturing is going on, and a lot of what Americans don't like about Washington is empty partisanship. I'm ready to vote on Harry Reid's plan. I was ready last night. Senator McConnell offered to vote on it last night. Harry Reid's filibustering himself, and Americans, I think, are upset about that silly posturing.
Well, there's no doubt about that. But the matter of principle, though, elaborate on that for just a moment. That seems to matter very much to so many of those who are in Congress for the first time, particularly those who are backed by the Tea Party.
I would say that I care more about our country's future than I do about a deal. And this town is about deals. We have deals all the time. I want a solution to our nation's problems. If I thought this deal would fix the problems, it's not something about my principles or an abstract principle that keeps me from voting for this. I'm unable to vote for this because it's a plan that never balances and adds trillions of dollars more debt to our country. We can't withstand that. So I care more about our country than I care about a deal.
Well, there is a bill that's getting some attention dubbed the Connie Mack penny plan, introduced by Florida Congressman Connie Mack, which cuts 1 penny out of every dollar, as I understand it, and that within 6 years we could have some significant cuts and have a balanced budget. Is that plan getting any traction?
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of people are signing on to it in the Senate. I'm one of the co-sponsors in the Senate. And the interesting thing is the other side wants to paint the Tea Party as so radical. We're asking for 1 penny out of every federal dollar spent to be cut. It's cut for 6 years, and then it's held at a freezed level for a couple more years. That balances the budget. You know, American families are suffering. 1 out of 10 Americans are out of a job. All we're asking is 1 penny out of every dollar be saved. American families are having to cut back. I think it's a very reasonable plan, and I think if we discuss things on the merit, instead of people just calling the Tea Party names or calling me names, what we should do is cut and talk about why it's unreasonable that we cut 1 penny out of every dollar of spending.
Well, you know, there's so much tension and finger-pointing going on about who's to blame for taking the country so close to an economic freefall. But there's also growing talk that August 2nd is an artificial deadline and that the fear-mongering is simply out of control. Do you agree?
Well, you know, also talking about whether it's principle versus compromise, the Tea Party and the conservatives in the Senate and the House, we offered to give the president the whole $2 trillion to go beyond his election. We know he has some campaign plans and fundraisers plans that he needs to get to, and we don't want to distract him with discussions of the debt in Washington. So we would let him get all the way through his election campaign. All we wanted was a balanced budget, gradually over 7 to 8 years. We think that's a pretty reasonable compromise.
Well, let me ask you this at this stage. I mean, the stakes remain very high. You guys are going to be working throughout this weekend. Are you hopeful that there is going to be some type of deal? I know you hate that word, but the fact is,
there will be a deal.
There will be a deal.
I think there will be a deal. I'm almost certain that the debt ceiling goes up before August 2nd. If there isn't a deal, though, the president needs to come before the country and say that he will not default on the debt and that he actually has a constitutional obligation to pay for it and that we have plenty of tax revenue to do it. So it's an artificial deadline in the sense that there's no reason for us ever to default on our debt. We've got plenty of tax revenue to pay the interest on our debt.
All right, Rand Paul, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best as you continue to take part in the activities there that have us all fixated on what's taking place on Capitol Hill today. Thank you. Fair and Balanced. A little later in the show, we will talk to Democratic Congressman Eliot Engel about why some in his party are pushing for